Hey guys, David Pingree with Vital MX, and we're out here today at Gen Helen with the Honda crew getting our ride on the 2021 Honda CRF450. This is a much anticipated machine, lots of changes for this year. It's practically all new. And we got to spend the whole day shaking this thing down and getting our feet wet with it. Let's start with going through the changes on this motorcycle, because the Honda CRF450 has been at times sort of the bike to beat, going all the way back to 08. Went through a rebuilding process starting in 09, kind of got to where it was a really high level bike again, and now they're starting over. So what's gonna happen? Well, let's go through some of the changes and see what they were aiming at. When the engineers set out to rebuild this thing, the concept was razor sharp cornering. That was sort of the mantra they were driving at every day. But it really fell into every single category of the bike. The engine's all new, starting with the head. It's a unicam cylinder head. It's been updated. There's all kinds of changes, including the counterweight being relocated from the right end of the camshaft to the left, geared at sort of maintaining a very deliverable power, but keeping that power up. The magnesium cylinder head cover is designed obviously out of a lighter material. It's a thinner material, so there are weight savings there. The total weight savings on this bike, 3 pounds from last year's model. And it's not any one thing, it's little bits here and there that they kind of stole from everywhere to get that 3 pounds. There's the exhaust port's been centralized, it's oval, it's straightened out, and that sort of helps exhaust flow out. That is combined with an intake that's now a downdraft intake. Air boot's been drastically enlarged from 1.8 liters on the clean side of the filter to 4.1 liters. That gives you a little bit better torque at low RPM. And there's a completely different airbox in this thing as well. You basically access it through the left side panel now. One 8mm bolt comes off, you get right in there, and that's a toolless change. So it's just a clip that snaps off, you pop the air filter out, pop a new one in. So it's an interesting design. It's something similar you'd see on like the KTM, the way they've got the toolless system. There is a big vent on that side plate that to me seems very susceptible to getting a lot of dirt in there. So I would imagine you're gonna wanna put some type of screening behind that just to keep big chunks of dust and dirt out. The angle of the fuel injector has been increased from 30 degrees to 60 degrees. In addition, the fuel pump's now smaller and 120 grams lighter. So the exhaust went to a single system this year, went away from the dual exhaust they've had for years. It reduced weight, obviously, which is a no-brainer. But it also improves bottom end torque delivery, and it weighs 8.5 pounds in total, which is 2.7 pounds less than last year's model. So pretty big savings right there alone. The exhaust header is now 74 millimeters closer to the engine on the right side. The muffler itself has been reshaped and brought in about 13 millimeters to centralize mass. You'll see the battery on this bike. There's a little plastic casing for it. Rather than sitting up high in the airbox the way it used to, now it's below the airbox, attached to the frame and a little plastic box down there. So taking that weight and dropping it lower, trying to centralize it. There's 2 resonators, one after the front U-bend and another at the upstream end of the muffler. So trying to continue to make more power with the performance side of it while also keeping the sound reasonable. The clutch, obviously got a hydraulic clutch for this year. That was a change. It's the same hydraulic Nissan system they're gonna use on the race bikes. It's a very high quality system, but they increased clutch volume by 27%, adding an 8th clutch plate using stiffer springs. So a lot of things geared towards better performance, better reliability, more durability. And they're saying they should reduce clutch slip by 85% at peak power. Pretty significant. And when you consider how much your clutch was probably slipping and you didn't even know it under peak power, that's a pretty major deal. Big changes to the electronics this year on the 2021 machine. You now have 3 different settings for traction control and for maps, and those apply to every single gear. And there's standard, smooth, and aggressive maps, and just selectable, just as easy as pushing the button. And they also have traction control in 3 different settings. So 1 is sort of the least amount, 2 is a little bit more, and 3 is for really slippery conditions where it's gonna really intervene and help that wheel It just detects spikes in RPMs and retards the timing and pulls back the fuel injection a little bit so that it reduces that spike. It's noticeable, it works, it's a huge advantage. If you get, like even today out here at Gen Helen, we get a really hard base, and when you come out of a turn and hit some of that slick stuff and it wants to step out and rip, the RPMs climb up real quick, it helps you reduce those mistakes. I preferred it on 3 all day long today. It's very easily, you just toggle through with a button, 1, 2, and 3, same with the maps, and that's an update from last year. All right, lots of changes on the chassis in 2021. All new frame, you can kind of just look at it and see that the side spars are smaller. Where it meets the head tube is up at the top, where in years past, they've kind of come down in the middle of that tube. The geometry is different. Wheelbase is now 1 millimeter shorter. Rake is relaxed, 0.5 degrees. Trail is reduced by 2 millimeters. And swing arm angle is 0.9 degrees steeper. Again, with all of those changes, trying to centralize mass, the battery, the exhaust, everything else, trying to make it feel as nimble as possible while also actually making it as light as possible. All things combined, it's a 1.54 pound weight reduction just in the frame alone. The swing arm's narrower now. It gives you a little bit more clearance in ruts so it doesn't drag so much. And it's designed to basically work in conjunction with the frame. The suspension system is only slightly changed this year. It's the same components, but it is a little bit 5 millimeter longer travel, different upper and lower triple clamps. So made some changes just to kind of adapt to the changes in the frame and the swing arm. So those are all the real big technical changes on the bike this year. Again, going for that razor sharp cornering, while some of the techs here were really touting the motor. Trey Kennard, one of the guys that did some of the development on the final pre-production model, and his biggest takeaway was the engine. It was making more power than they probably ever have, but trying to make it usable and rideable by everybody. And you can just look at the bike, you see the bodywork is slimmer. The seat bolts are actually up on the front now to pull the seat off. You can access the filter from there, but you don't need to. There's just some very unique looks and changes on things. Nothing that's really gonna affect performance, but just it's definitely a different look for the CRF. Bottom line, how was it on the track? I'll tell you, the first things I noticed right away is that the motor is potent. If you go back to 09 and even some of those iterations between then and now, Honda sort of played it safe with their engine and made it very linear, very electric feeling, but it could be a little bit underwhelming, especially when you ride it back to back with other brands. Doesn't mean it wasn't effective, but particularly when you're doing a shootout or something like that, guys would go, oh, Honda's slow. Well, maybe it did make a little bit less power, but it made a very broad, usable power. But they had complaints. People want more power, so Honda gave it to you. And the neat thing is, with the 3 different maps, with the traction control, you can really manage it. And obviously you can go in and change, fuel mapping and things, make your own maps if you want to. So there's a lot of adjustability there. But I did notice, for me, there's standard, smooth, and aggressive. I was between 1 and 2. The standard is kind of where I landed, to be really honest with you. Just, for me, I was the most comfortable with that, with traction control all the way on 3. And that felt like I could leave the clutch alone, just use the throttle. Plenty of torque everywhere. You're never wanting that clutch. And probably my biggest takeaway on this bike, from the motor side of it, is that the RPMs pull to the moon now. It just doesn't fall off. It revs farther than any Honda I've ever ridden in stock trim. So they really spread that power out from down way low to much higher than I've ever seen it go. So very broad, usable power, lots of adjustability. In terms of the feel of it, I definitely felt that it's thinner, and which is great. I don't think anybody is not gonna like that. It's very easy to turn left or right, to kind of move around. If you want to square a turn up, it does it effortlessly. And it'll also follow around a berm real nicely, doesn't ever want to stand up, doesn't want to knife and tuck the front end. The forks come 5 millimeters above the clamp. I split the difference rather than going all the way down flush. I dropped them 2.5 mils, and that allowed me to soften up the clickers a little bit, keep my ride height the same, but get a little bit better feel, a little bit better action. And you can feel the cornering. I guess I should address that. That's their big push, is razor sharp cornering. And I'll tell you, even when I dropped the forks down, I was worried if I wanted to gain a little bit of stability in that front end and also get it back up because I had softened it a bit. But I was worried if I'd lose the ability to turn, and not at all. This thing, The minute you lean it in, it just wants to start turning, and which is what you hope out of a motorcycle. So they've done great things with the frame and swing arm and all of the components that go along with that. And it really does turn well. It's very Suzuki-esque in the way it goes into a turn and handles it. So with the suspension, we set our sag at 105. It felt firm to me. Comparing the last several years of Hondas we've ridden, they've come a little bit soft. And in fact, there was complaints. It was from bigger riders saying that the suspension's a little soft for them. At 170 pounds, I loved it. The last few years have been awesome suspension settings. This felt a little bit firmer, so maybe they're going more for a 185, 200 pound guy. So I opened up clickers 6, front and rear, high speed on the rear, half a turn opened up. And at the suggestion of the Showa guys, I also opened up my rebound, 2 clicks, front and rear. And that did get it to soften up and move a little bit more. Still a little bit firm for here. Now, if I go somewhere where the dirt's deeper and it's stickier, it might be great. I might have to firm it back up. But at Glen Helen, where there's that hard base, you want it to be nice and soft to settle in and grab. And I was still, I don't want to say I was chasing that today, but I could still probably go a little softer. So just something to think about as you're working through that. I would definitely recommend trying dropping the clamps a little bit. We're going to do another video on this bike called Race Spec. That's going to be a good settings for you to start with. So keep an eye out for that coming here soon. That was it on the suspension. It did feel good. By the time we made those changes, I was really comfortable with it. Clutch, great feel. They touted like a softer pull than the cable, especially once it gets warm. I never had any issues with the old one, but no issues here today. Do know that it's adjustable, like where that lever sits, and it comes pretty far out. So for me, I wanted to adjust it in just so it's a little closer to the grip. All good there. Comes with great tires, the Dunlop MX-33s. Everything else about it in terms of the rider triangle and the feel of it, they tried to keep the same numbers they had. People have always liked the feel of the Honda. It just feels comfortable, and they didn't change that. So all the numbers for the rider triangle are same as they've been. Boy, not a whole lot of complaints about this motorcycle. Great engine, a very, very aggressive suspension package where you can really push it. Just all around great components, a great look. So we're gonna get some more time on this bike. As I mentioned, we're gonna have a video coming out called Race Spec that's gonna be good starting points if you pick one of these up. So keep an eye out for that. But all in all, very impressed with the new Honda. I think that looking at, for like race team guys, this is an amazing platform. Really gives them a good place to start. Kudos to the Honda guys. Excited to get some more time on this bike. Thank you guys for watching. Check out the photos below. And thanks for checking out the video. We'll see you guys in the next one.